Paul Finebaum, ESPN radio host, Paul Finebaum Show, and the voice of the SEC joining us on the program. Good morning, Paul. How are you?
I'm great. By the way, I think the Matt Rule hire is unbelievable. I've interviewed him a number of times, and he did something fascinating a couple of weeks ago, Dan. He's a huge college football fan, obviously, in addition to being a coach. And he may be the only college football coach I've ever known that admitted that he listens to sports radio. I used to be at WJOX in Birmingham, as you may remember, and we're still on there in the afternoon. And when we had him on a couple of weeks ago, he said, yeah, I drive to work every morning and I listen to that station in Birmingham. And this is in Waco, Texas. I mean, who admits that they listen to crazy people like us?
Tua makes the decision yesterday. I don't think anyone was surprised, but I am curious, just like it was with Kyler Murray for a different reason. He was signing a baseball contract, but he needed that affirmation he's going to be a top 10 pick. Once he got that, then I think he made the decision that it was easier for him. Did Tua get that affirmation from somebody that all of a sudden you're going to be a top 10 pick, maybe a top 5 pick, don't go back to Alabama?
I think he got as close to that as possible. What was really strange about this story is a week ago, as Alabama was getting ready for the Citrus Bowl, the official spin out of Tuscaloosa was simply that he was coming back, and that a lot of other people were as well. And I think that was just false enthusiasm, kind of like the night of your high school prom, and everybody, grabs hands and drinks cheap wine and says, we'll be best friends forever. And the next day you go off to college and never speak to the guy again. And I think Tua got caught up in that. But it's always worth remembering something about Tua. And I don't mean this to be disparagingly toward his family, but his father runs the show.
Yeah.
And I think the father took a good long look. He got what he heard. He got what he wanted last Friday when Tua went to New York to be seen by a specialist. He got the wink and the nod that things are moving along and progressing. And I also think there was a marketing side to it as well. Within about 2 hours after announcing that he was leaving, he signed with Lee Steinberg. Most people may have forgotten, but that was the subject of the Jerry Maguire movie. And I think there's a lot to be made off the field as well. I mean, Tua is a charismatic guy, Dan. And I think the numbers that he will make off the field are pretty significant.
I'm curious who you think, what quarterback benefited the most from the talent around him? Because I've said all along, if LSU ever got a really good quarterback, then we would, be really amazing, because we'd see all of these wide receivers in the NFL and we'd go, oh, they went to LSU? I never knew that. Clemson's got a lot of talent. Alabama's got a lot of talent. So out of Tua, Joe Burrow, and Trevor Lawrence, who do you think benefited more from the talent they had around them?
I think it was probably Burrow, because Tua, to me, throws one of the prettiest passes I have ever seen. By the way, one more thing on what you just said. I had somebody come up to me in New York a couple of weeks ago, and he said, did Odell Beckham really play at LSU? I said, yes, he did. He said, I don't remember him being there, because that was every wide receiver that played under Les Miles. That's a great question. I think Trevor Lawrence is a generational quarterback. I think Tua is. Joe Burrow had the best season I've ever seen, and I'm not doubting him. I swear, because I didn't see him have a bad series the entire football season. But I think Joe Burrow became part of a system that worked perfectly. And you've heard Joe Brady, the young guy who came over from the Saints. But what he did, in addition to calling great plays, is he changed the fundamental way LSU receivers caught balls. I mean, he drilled that into their heads in the offseason, and that made it easier for Joe Burrow, who was flawless. So there's very little wiggle room between the answer to that question, though.
The greatest season turned in by an SEC quarterback is who?
I'm going Joe Burrow, maybe a nose hair ahead of Cam Newton, who in 2010 did absolutely nothing wrong. The only thing he did wrong the entire season, against his head coach's warning, he tried to dive over on the next to the last play of the national championship game against Oregon to be the hero, and it turned out he was stuffed, and they kicked a chip shot field goal to win.
You wouldn't put Manziel's season up there?
Manziel, I would put it up there. I mean, in terms of pure excitement, I'm not sure I've ever seen anything like it. But man, the difference was even though Manziel and A&M beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa, they also dropped a game or two that they probably shouldn't have. He had a really rough game. So I'm trying to remember where it was. It's only been 7 or 8 years, but to me, Cam's was nearly. By the way, I mean Cam did lose one game. Excuse me, Cam did not lose a game, but he never had a bad game though. And Joe Burrow never had a bad series. So those are the two best. I would put Manziel in there. Tebow is a little hard to quantify because what he did was so unorthodox.
And he had a lot of talent around him as well. I mean, he was a great player, but he had a pro team around him there in Florida.
He did. He did. He really did.
The state of the union in Alabama, with Alabama not playing next week for the national title, you got your quarterback who's leaving. I know that they got other quarterbacks and a 5-star who's coming in, but is there any nervousness there with Alabama, or is it just reload?
It's reload, but I think it's a little bit of beating your head against the wall and saying I feel better when I stop. And I don't mean to write. I'm not writing Nick Saban off, but he's won 2 of the last 7 titles. Dan, that's great. That's a career for almost anyone else. But if Dabo Swinney is celebrating next Tuesday morning in New Orleans the national championship, that will be 3 out of 4 years. You tell me which one wins in a game of coaching poker, and I think that's the greatest fear. Alabama fans don't really know who to cheer for. They don't like LSU. But they really dislike Clemson even more because Clemson is the one who a year ago today beat them by 28 points, and Alabama is still trying to figure out what happened that night in Santa Clara.
But I still, people think I'm crazy when I say this, that if I'm Dabo Swinney, if Alabama's open and Nick, steps down in the next 2 years or so, I know that he's supposed to go back there, but I'd be like, I would not leave Clemson to go back there.
No, you're not crazy. You're very smart for saying that. There's no way he'll go back there. A couple of years ago, I thought he would. I sat with him at a banquet 2 years ago where he was inducted into the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame. And he was teary-eyed and emotional. His family was there. It was, it was a big moment for him. But that was a national championship ago. And the second one really does. It's like winning. You win. You have one number one hit with a million people have had that. Well, not that many, but quite a few. Having another one really solidifies you. And he's now in rarefied air. To go back, he's got as great a situation as any coach has ever had. He's beloved. If you've been there, Dan, it's just an unbelievably cool place where the only thing that matters is college football. And to go to Alabama to follow Saban is insane. In all the great transitions in history, whether following Wooden or Bryant or any one of the icons in college history, I think this would be the toughest because Alabama fans aren't really happy right now, and they went 11-2, destroyed Jim Harbaugh in a bowl game. Will finish in probably 6th or 7th in the rankings and have the number 2 recruiting class, and it feels like Armageddon.
I know. By the way, you got an early Christmas gift this year.
Yeah, I did. I guess you're talking about Jim Harbaugh.
No.
Oh,
Lane Kiffin.
That was Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, birthday, anniversary, all wrapped into one.
It's too easy. All you need to do is bring back Spurrier. Then you have it made.
Hey, talk about luck for Kiffin. He hires DJ Durkin from the Maryland coach who was fired. On any other day of the year, that would be the biggest story in college football, or at least within the state. By the end of the day, Mississippi State had fired its coach. And Kiffin was just sitting there going, "Isn't anyone going to criticize me?" It's going to be. Well, it is. Everything Lane does is a reality show, but this is going to be even more dramatic.
Wait, what was the Harbaugh? I know you and Harbaugh go at it.
Well, it was just it was just Harbaugh playing Saban last week in a New Year's Day bowl. That was. I mean, it's always. I used to really kind of, a little bit of schadenfreude with Harbaugh when he lost, but now Dan, it's like, I wish he would just beat somebody, because, I mean, how many times can you go on a radio show and go, Jim Harbaugh lost again to a top 10 team? I mean, it's becoming one of it's like the record just keeps skipping over and over again. So it's no longer really entertaining.
You are, Paul, though, and we appreciate your time as always. Thank you. Enjoy the national title game. Who do you have?
I like LSU.
Okay.
I don't expect that to change. Dan, it's a pleasure to be on with you again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, bud. Happy New Year. That's Paul Finebaum. He's ESPN radio host, Paul Finebaum Show.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune into Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV. Stream for free on BR Live or download the Dan Patrick Show app.